Hey, I'm Ali.
And I'm Weilyn. Welcome back to the Entrepre Ners podcast, the podcast for and by female entrepreneurs hosted by the Entrepre Ners Network, the most acclaimed female entrepreneur network in the world. Each week, we bring you stories of female entrepreneurs around the world as we kickstart our own journeys together.
Today, we are delighted to have on Sasha Wight, Managing Director and Employee Experience Lead at wrkflow, Asia's first employee experience design agency. She is passionate about designing and delivering digital workplace experiences that inspire and engage. She's a certified human-centered design practitioner, co-host of the Experience Lounge podcast, and holds an MBA from the University of Aberdeen.
Join us as we talk with Sasha about how she was motivated to start her own consultancy in the middle of a pandemic while preventing burnout. Hello and welcome to the podcast. We are so excited to have you today, Sasha.
It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. And just to get started, we always like to ask our guests, what is something that excites you when you wake up in the morning?
Oh my goodness. So the first thing that came to mind was coffee. I love coffee so much. So of course, I would also say the entrepreneurial spirit and my business and my dog, but I would definitely say coffee. That's my first response.
Fantastic.
I'm a big tea drinker myself. Every morning I make myself a cup of tea and then I sip it. It's the best.
Green tea right here.
Oh my goodness. No, it's not strong enough for me. I am a 4 or 5 cups of coffee kind of gal, unfortunately.
4 or 5.
Yeah, no, I know. And I'm making it a personality trait. It's really not.
It's a personality trait. Okay.
Yeah.
I love
That's
it.
Fantastic.
How do you like your coffee?
I would say black because I think that sounds edgier, but it's too strong for me. So I have a little bit of milk in my coffee. So Americano standards, I think. White Americano, yeah.
White Americano. Amazing.
So for our audience who don't know you so well, could you give us like a short little bio of who you are and what you do?
Sure, no worries. So my name's Sasha Wight. I'm based here in Singapore. So I've been in Singapore for 2.5 years now, originally from the UK, as I'm sure you can tell from the accent. I grew up in the county of Surrey, which is just outside of London. And then when I finished studying, I moved into the city, which is generally what most people do in the UK. Lived in an amazing house full of girls and then decided that I should grow up and got myself a proper job, which up until about 4 years ago was in internal HR, so in the people function. So I worked for a variety of organizations in kind of people business partner roles. And then I moved into consulting because I really wanted to be client facing. And then I fell in love with it, relocated to Asia to run the HR transformation and an alliance here for KPMG. And then when I got bored of working in the Big Four, I decided that the middle of the global pandemic was the perfect time to launch a business. So I went solo. And started my own consultancy here in Singapore. So that's been, I would say, 9-10 months now. So still pretty new, but loving it. And we focus on employee experience design here. So my company is called wrkflow. Essentially, we help organizations make sure that they are building a competitive and compelling employee experience.
That's absolutely amazing. And I really, really resonate with the fact that you tried other things before you started your own startup, your own entrepreneurial endeavor, because sometimes we see like the media, you just go right out of college, you do it. In reality, I'm sure you learned some really valuable lessons at KPMG that brought you to start wrkflow. So I'm curious to hear, what are some of those lessons that you think you gained and those experiences you gained from kind of being in a more corporate Big Four, as you mentioned, that allowed you and motivated you eventually to start your own venture?
That's a really great question. I think all of the relationship skills are really important. And I've spent time being on both sides of the table, right? So the people I sell to are HR leaders. And I've been in that role. So I've been a HR leader myself. So I kind of know what it's like to be on both sides of the table, which means I have a much better understanding of how to engage with people, what works well when you're selling, what doesn't work so well. I've also seen people, and this is no shade to people that do this, but I've seen a lot of consultants in big firms and in their own firms that have spent their entire careers in just one profile. So one consulting role, only ever selling to internal buyers. And I think sometimes I cringe a little bit because I'm like, I understand what it's like on both sides. And I know that there are certain things that you say to HR people or internal stakeholders that are just totally cringeworthy and not going to be an effective sales strategy. So I think having that richness of experience of being in-house, then within the secure and kind of safe bubble of a big firm like KPMG and being able to sell and engage with people in that kind of environment, right through to now being on my own, it's kind of given me a lot more experience, I think, with certain stakeholders. So I think that's one. I think the second is trial and error, right? So as I kind of touched on, I've been in safe environments where I can try projects that maybe haven't been as effective when I look back in my career, but I've been within that kind of safe bubble of a corporate environment where actually you're given that freedom to trial and error. And I think if you start out on your entrepreneur journey straight away, fantastic. And if that works well for you, that's brilliant. But actually being in an environment where you can, test things out, also learn a bit more about who you are as a professional within that kind of safety blanket of, it's okay if things aren't 100% right, or if I decide to change my career halfway through, or actually I don't end up loving this, So I think those are probably the two main things.
I love that. And I think it's especially important because, like, kind of what you mentioned about having a safety net, I think a lot of us at college have that kind of safety net because college is really a time where you get to experience so many different things. And it's really cool that you were able to try so many different projects and kind of have like a little bit of a safety net. What's it like, or do you have any advice for like how you started the company, or like what drove you to do it?
Oh, okay. Another great question. So my opinion on this is slightly different to a lot of people. So a lot of people say, if you've got the idea, you've got the passion, you've got the drive, just go out and do it, which I totally respect. And that boldness, I think, is, as I say, well respected. But I think for me, I went through a really thorough planning process, and that worked really well for me because I'm very organized. I always have to have a plan B and a plan C because otherwise I don't feel 100% comfortable. So I guess the advice I would give to someone is really think through your business plan, your business strategy, your customer value proposition, document it and test it. So I know a lot of people listening may or may not be doing an MBA, but that's incredibly valuable for me. So going through the MBA process and learning about, business models, the business model canvas, the customer value proposition, what makes your USP, all of those elements. In theory, a lot of people say, oh, okay, we get it, the theory behind running a business, but genuinely using those frameworks was a game changer for me. I think it really allowed me to get so much more clarity on what I'm bringing to the market and why I'm doing it as well. So to kind of answer your question, I think go through that planning process, don't overlook it, don't rush, because you'll end up thinking to yourself a couple of months in, or maybe I'm not even clear on my value proposition and what it is that I'm bringing to the market. So genuinely think, pause, reflect, do the work in the background, test your idea, get feedback, and then launch. Of course, the two things can run in parallel, but I would say for me and for my personality type, it really helped for me to take 2 or 3 months to really work through it and refine it and feel totally comfortable that what I'm bringing to market is game changing and really what I want to do and what I love.
That is really, really beautiful. And I love the note that you end off of, what you do is what you love. So in terms of workflow and what you're doing, how do you find that you continue to find motivation and passion for what you're doing? What problem do you enjoy solving? What is your why with what you're doing right now?
Oh, great question. I think what I'm doing is very different in this region. So employee experience as a concept is relatively new to a lot of organizations in this part of the world. So in the US, it's pretty common. In EMEA, definitely, everybody's talking about it. It's a concept. But here, it's kind of a real learning journey for a lot of people. And I think that's what excites me the most is I'm kind of one of the first dedicated employee experience consultancies that's not only focusing on solving client problems, which is what I love to do, but it's also helping to educate the market on what employee experience is and putting content out there that is, fundamentally shaping how people think about employee experience in this region. I think that's what really excites me. I'm also massively into the data. So I love working on a project, and often our projects are quite short, so 3 to 6 months, setting some really clear objectives at the start of that project, and then looking back at the end of the 3 or 6 months and having the client say to me, oh, that completely changed it, or our engagement scores and our survey results have really skyrocketed. And that makes me feel really proud. And I think I think that's where that zest kind of comes from, is being able to see those results and also being able to hear the feedback from the industry that people are engaging more in the debate around employee experience, and that we have helped in any way or in some way to help shape that conversation.
So shifting gears slightly, I would love to learn more about maybe some failures that you faced along the way, or how has your entrepreneurial journey kind of shaped the way you looked at failure?
Wow. Okay. So this one is still a learning journey for me, and a bit of a process, but I would say running a business and starting a business is a marathon, not a sprint. And I say this to myself every day because that's still a journey that I am on, which is I kind of got myself into this rut when I started out of I have to be working 12, 14-hour days. I need to put the work in. Like, I probably fell victim to hustle culture massively. And, it was just unsustainable. And I reached a point back end of last year where I was, so anxious, and my mental health was really, really starting to struggle. And I think within that, your passion starts to wane because you end up hating the thing that is making you feel so bad. And I think that has been, I don't want to say a failing, but definitely a learning curve for me. Was you need to take it slow and steady, and slow isn't a bad thing, and I'm not saying not running at the opportunities and not taking what the market is offering you, but running at a pace that is sustainable for you and not comparing yourself to every other journey. I think we are so overcome with stories of founders who skyrocket overnight and they get X amount in fundraising, which is fantastic for them, but everybody's journey is different. And I think that was definitely a key lesson for me, which is quite emotive, and I'm happy to talk about it, but I'm definitely in a much better place. And I found a really good balance with the business, and things have still continued to grow. Like, it's not compromised the pace at which the business has grown and our success rates, but it has just meant that I am a much healthier and happier founder. And I bring that happiness to clients, which is something that was maybe waning a little bit towards the end of last year. I think practical terms, be careful with your hiring strategy and don't be afraid to invest early on. So don't cheap out on your resource when you hire it. I've learned the hard way. Make sure that you're hiring people that have the right levels of talent and the experience you need to hit the ground running.
Wow, I could I would want to read a book about 9 things you wrote on there. You said there, I really, really resonated with what you said about taking it slow, and it's a marathon, not a sprint. Again, we see this culture of even Forbes 30 under 30, how things are such glorified, this hustle, this grind, these 14-hour weeks, 14-hour days. If you're not working all the time, nonstop, you're not passionate, not going to best. And you're right, it's totally about being in the flow, about finding what's work for you. And I really like what you said at the end about how kind of taking a step back actually allowed you to be a more thoughtful and more engaging entrepreneur, because people don't want to see actually someone who's okay, I have 1 hour of sleep and I can't do anything, and this is it, and this is my life, I have no personal life. It's kind of unsettling. You're like, I want to see a person. I want to hear about that trip you went on. I want to hear about the 2 hours of Netflix you watched last night. People want to see humans. People want to talk to humans. So I would love to hear about how you find at wrkflow. You talked about how important it is for your team, where you find that you're injecting this humanistic energy into a company, where we see this normal corporate culture of okay, 9 to 5, you're working this is your task, finish this, I don't care what you do, just do this. How do you find you bring humanistic energy and excitement into your venture?
Maybe this will come across as a bit of a cliche, but I try and not be a different version of myself with the team, and try to be, I'm relatively young, right? I'm into all the things that a lot of my team members are into. So I will doom scroll for an hour and a half on TikTok at night before I go to bed. I'm really active on Instagram. I love kind of pop culture, trash TV, all of those things, as well as running a very serious business that is B2B and very corporate. And so I try to bring my personal attributes, my personality into work. And I think that helps me to build really authentic relationships with the team. We have WhatsApp groups and Instagram groups where, we'll all share and bond over things that aren't necessarily work related. And I think that really helps me to feel like I'm not under pressure to be a certain person for my team. I'm exactly as I am at home. Of course, there are boundaries, and you have to be professional. And, you know, a lot of the times when you're under pressure to deliver for a client, you have to make sure the team are working really hard and everything like that. But I don't think that you have to forego your personality. And actually that in itself has allowed me to build authentic relationships where the team will come to me with personal issues and I will be very open with the team about personal issues. You know, we have a weekly catch up, and I would say 45% of that conversation is catching up on what's going on in people's lives. And I try to create that environment where people can be themselves because I'm being myself. And I think if they can see that in me, they're more likely to be comfortable to bring their whole selves to work, right? That's a concept that we talk about all the time. So yeah, I would say that.
That's amazing. And I think it's so important in like a team setting to bring that culture. And as a leader, that's definitely so important, whether it's like a big company or even in a club situation. Shifting gears slightly, I would love to know more about how like your college experience has kind of like shaped the way that you've viewed entrepreneurship, or whether it's helped you in any way. And if you have any advice for young female entrepreneurs who are just entering the space.
I think the one thing that I really bring into my everyday is having evidence and research to support anything you say to your clients, to your stakeholders, to your business partners, etc., is something that was ingrained in me over those years in college or university, as we call it in the UK. And it sounds really kind of trivial, but I definitely think that brings such an added layer of kind of respect and authority when you're talking about your topic. And I say this because I'm a young woman here in a region that I have never grown up in, running a B2B business where people are buying from me. They are buying services and guidance and advice and counsel from me and the team. We are people. It's, you know, you're literally buying my brain when we're doing consulting. So I think that the one thing that was really drilled into me during that time at university was, you know, making sure you've got the right research. You're not just coming up with statements that you've thought sound nice or that you've observed once. You know, you will get a lot more respect and people will trust you when you're using all of the techniques that you learn during those college years to write your essays, to write your client proposals, whatever it is. That is probably the biggest and most significant transferable skill. It doesn't mean that you're becoming a permanent researcher and that everything you say has to be backed up by scientific data. But if you seek comfort in that and you think that your clients are going to respect you and your opinion and what you're saying even more by having that, I would say that's kind of the biggest takeaway for me. The second thing I would also add is networking is huge, and kind of leading on, maybe I'm shaping the question to what I want it to be here, but networking is key, right? So all of my big clients are from my network, pre-launching the business. And I would shout from the rooftops about this. Network with everyone, take all the introductions that you can, be as bold and as brave as possible, use your LinkedIn account as well. You know, just like when you're networking and getting to know people at college, like exactly the same thing happens in the professional world, right? Getting to know people, getting those introductions will really, really help you, whether you're looking to start your own business or just get a job. But yeah, I would say that's really, really key. And also putting yourself out there. So just like when you're trying to make friends or you're trying to, you know, develop opportunities when you're at university, or find those opportunities at university for great internships or whatever, putting yourself out there and creating your own brand on LinkedIn and on those professional networking sites. I can never stress enough how important it is to start that early on and to start shaping who you are externally, like you own that brand, and get out there and shape it. I think that would be really valuable.
So powerful. So powerful. I really, really like that, the practical advice you give. Not just, oh yeah, like put yourself out there. Like, no, use LinkedIn, talk to people. Really, really great. As we begin to wrap up, we ask you a few questions we ask all our podcast guests. And the first one is, what is something that you are grateful for today?
What am I grateful for? I'm going to say my husband. Not that I need my husband, just to put it out there, just to add that feminist angle there. But he is fantastic and a real support for me. And we have challenged so many norms about relationship through this entrepreneur journey. He is incredibly patient with me. And, you know, when I am up early or working late, or I can't take the dog out, or, you know, the washing racks up for weeks and weeks and I won't remove it even though it's dry, he is totally patient with me. And that does make a huge difference for me. So today I'm really grateful for him.
I love that so much. Our next question is, what is something that you loved about yourself today?
Oh my goodness, this is a big one. What do I love about myself today? I think I'm going to say confidence, because I think so often, especially as women, we are almost embarrassed to be confident and to be outwardly confident. And I think today I'm really grateful for that, because it's allowed me to continue to get up every morning, put myself out there and go up against, you know, leaders in the industry that are much older than I am and male. And yeah, I think my confidence I'm grateful for.
Wonderful. And just to wrap things up, what does it mean to you to be an entrepreneur?
For me, it means getting up every day and choosing to do what I love and choosing to enjoy the struggle as well as enjoying the benefits that come with being an entrepreneur. It's making a choice, and I get up every morning and I'm doing it for myself and I'm doing it for my future. And that's what it means for me, in short.
Thank you
Wow,
for joining us today. That was truly amazing, and have a wonderful rest of your day.
That wraps it up for today's podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. We hope you learned a lot about Sasha and how she leads her team at wrkflow.
Great thanks to Kathleen and Stefanie as our podcast producers too.
Check out our past episodes and look out for our upcoming episodes on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you're listening now.
To stay updated and involved, join the Entrepreneurs Network community on our Instagram and LinkedIn, and get in touch with us to share your very own entrepreneurial journey.